So again, I'm Alex Fabry, and for my SYP, I shot a short film, and on your tables there's a script of it if you want to take a look. And there's a brief synopsis of it up at the top of the abstract. And so my film, it was about a brother and a sister, kind of based on me and my sister, although in the film the relationship between the siblings is not a good one. The brother doesn't really like the sister, and the sister wants to look up to the brother and wants the brother to be there to spend time with her, but it doesn't really work out. And so through a situation, they accidentally break the urn containing their great-grandmother's ashes, which is kind of a crazy thing, but I figured they had to do something that was so unreplaceable. They had to try to fix that in order to become closer. And in the end, while they do become slightly closer, it's not like this crazy shift in 12 minutes, because my film is 12 minutes. It's not like suddenly they love each other. They're just slightly closer. And I like that because it's human. And so I'm going to take you behind the scenes of my film. So first, I'm going to walk you through the production process, just very briefly. So you have to start with an idea. And for me, getting an idea was one of the more difficult parts of the process, because while I do consider myself a creative person, finding an idea that's original and captivating is really tough in a day when everything's been put on film already. And so to find an idea, I collaborated with a good friend of mine, Kelsey Fox, who you guys may know from all of her work in the theater department. And so she helped me think up the idea and think up the story. And it was her idea to break an urn. And so after coming up with an idea, I had to go and start writing my script, and you guys have that script there. And that's actually the 6th draft of the script. So writing took a long time. And while I would have loved to write with someone, I felt that the best way to expedite the writing process would be to write alone. However, I did have a lot of friends look at it draft by draft and tell me, this part's really great, this dialogue seems unnatural, this part should go. And so while I did write alone, I had a lot of help along the way. And so after writing, you have to get to the pre-production process. And this is a really fun process, because this is where you take your script and you say, I'm going to start making it look like something. And so you go and you start storyboarding. And so storyboarding is when you some directors like to storyboard the whole film and go shot by shot and draw out little pictures and diagrams of how every shot will be filmed. Others, myself included, like to look at little parts of the film, like the most high stakes, the title is high stakes, the most high stakes parts of the film, and storyboard those parts out. And so after storyboarding, you have to start looking for locations. And in my film, there were 3 major locations that it was shot at. The house where my main characters live, a yard sale that they go to try to buy an urn, and it doesn't work out well. And then eventually they go to a house and they see a vase in the window that looks just like their urn. And so they have to go inside the house and steal it. And so that was the 3rd location. And then after location scouting, you move on to camera tests. And that sounds exactly what it sounds like. I went to my locations and I took little videos of what I was thinking of filming, and then I would put it in my editing software and cut it together to just see how it looks. So after camera testing, you gather props. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then you assemble a crew, and this is where things started to get really fun and really interesting. So in my formal paper, I talked about collaboration, and I talked about how collaboration is essential in the filmmaking process. And so when I was assembling a crew, I wanted to look for people who I felt I could really work well with, and people who I felt would contribute to the film in a creative way. And so I looked to my friend Drew Gately, who's really done a lot of work in the TV production part of the school. And he helped me film the movie. He held the boom, and most importantly, the boom mic, what gets the audio. And most importantly, he helped me set up all the shots and coordinate filming days. So after getting a crew, it came to casting. And so casting was a really interesting process. So one of the roles in the film, the younger sibling, Anne, I wrote that for my sister, which was awesome because I already had one of the casting steps out of the way. And so my sister immediately agreed to play the role, and she was awesome, and I wrote the part for her. And so everything that you see in the movie was kind of written with her in mind. And then my male lead, Harry, that was a little bit more difficult casting just because for filming this project, I needed someone who could really dedicate a lot of time to being on set and just going through all the shots. And so I asked a bunch of friends if they were interested, and a lot of people were, but not a lot of people were able to dedicate the time. And so finally, I decided to ask someone from SYP, and I asked, Capstone, and I asked Dan Minahan, and he plays the lead in the film as well. So after casting, we go on to principal photography, and that's just shooting the film. And so I shot this in 6 days, 2 weekends in April, and then 2 just extra days in May. One of those days was for reshoots. And so the filming process was really fun, and it did take a long time. And what I'm really proud of is the film takes place over 4 or 5 hours, but I shot it in 6 days, all like very far away from each other, but it doesn't look like any of the days, or it doesn't look like the film is shot on different days. It all looks kind of the same. So after filming it, you have to take all your footage and put it into post-production. And that's where you edit it together. And I'm actually going to take you on, or in my next slide, I'm going to show you the editing software that I used. So this is the software that I used. It's called Final Cut Pro, and it's kind of daunting to look at. And when I first got it, I was like, how am I gonna figure out how to use this? But after experimenting with it for a little while, I actually did a video for Mr. Kenosi and Greengineering just to kind of learn how to use it. I realized it was like iMovie on steroids. So it looks a lot like iMovie, it feels a lot like iMovie, but it can do so much more. And so really, I'm just going to show you one major part of it, and that's called the timeline. So that's this part. And you can see all these little boxes. Those are my clips. And so through the filming process, I was taking clips and just throwing them into the timeline. And then one other thing that I just want to point out is up here, this is where I do what's called color correction. And color correction is a really awesome process because what it is you take your footage and you adjust all the colors and the brightness and darkness on the clips. And so one major part of color correction is that, or one benefit of color correction is that I did shoot this on 6 separate days, but because of color correction, I was able to make all the days look pretty similar. And that's the point of it. You try to make all the shots look similar so you have a similar feel over the entire film. So now I'm going to walk you guys through 2 clips in the film. And I'm going to play it for you, and then it's going to play again, and I'll talk about each shot. So I call it the anatomy of the scene. So this first scene is the pivotal scene of the film when Harry accidentally knocks down the urn. Okay, so that was the clip, and now I'm going to take you behind the scenes. So first, I'm going to talk about lighting. So this scene I shot with a 3-light setup and practicals. And so what practicals are their light sources that you see in the frame. So in this shot, I have 4 practicals. I have this window, a little lamp back there, which wasn't really meant to be a practical, but it's just a lamp in the house, and because you can see it, I have to call it a practical. And then this ceiling light. And so I also had 3 lights going with the practicals. And so I had 1 light behind this wall, and it was acting as an extra source for the window. And so what you want to do when you place lights is make it look like the light from the light you place is actually coming from a practical. So it's not this weird light source just outside of frame. And so that light, I put a blue gel on it that just colors light blue, and I aimed it towards the bed to look like the window. Then I had a light out kind of outside of the room, basically here, and that was meant as a light outside of the room. And then the third light, which you'll see once Harry walks down the stairs, was at the bottom of the stairs coming up, and that was meant to look like it's coming from this lamp. So next, Harry walks into this room, and you see Anne there, and he puts on this jacket. So why is this jacket important? Well, this scene was shot on the 4th day of filming, and the scene that was immediately before it was shot on the 1st day of filming. And then finally, the scene that immediately follows it was shot on the 2nd day of filming. So there's all these different days lined up, and in the first shot up in Harry's room, he's not wearing a jacket. And then in the shot after this, in the scene after this, he is wearing a jacket. So I needed to figure out a way for continuity reasons to have him put on a jacket rather than suddenly Harry's wearing a jacket. And so that's why he does this. And there were a few times when we had to think about the jacket because in some days it's zipped up, some days it's unzipped. And so we just had to have a few walking shots of them zipping or unzipping the jackets. So next, Harry picks up this remote and the TV turns on. So why does it sound like there's a TV on? Well, when Harry was doing this, I was standing right in front of him, and there's a TV behind me, but it wasn't on because that would add too much sound bleed into the image, and it wouldn't add what I wanted it to add. So after we filmed, I went onto YouTube and I just got some audio clips and synced them up with Harry's remote up here. So every time the red button blinks, the channel changes. And it's going to go through it again so you guys can watch it again. Okay, so now I'm just going to briefly talk about lighting again. So in this scene, I used another 3-light setup, and I had 2 lights aimed at Harry and 1 at Anne. And I don't know if you can tell, but kind of right down the middle of the image, this side is slightly yellower and this side is slightly bluer. And so how I did that is on the lights on Harry, I put blue gels again, and on the lights on Anne, I had an orange gel. And I did that because generally blue is kind of a colder color, and Harry's wearing blue, and he's just a colder personality. And then there's Anne, and she's wearing this yellow sweatshirt, and it has like fish with all different faces on it. And so she's this warm personality. And so I wanted to kind of reflect that in this pivotal scene, just to show the difference in personality. So now I'm gonna talk about color correction. So this image that you see right here is without color correction. And I think it looks pretty good, but adding a layer of color correction kind of pushes it to the next level, and it makes it look more filmic. And so it's going to go through the switch twice just so you can see it. So this is the uncolor corrected shot. And then that's it with color correction. And so it's slightly bluer and a little more saturated. So uncolor corrected and color corrected. All right, so this was one of the scariest scenes to shoot because we actually had to break a giant vase. And so you see him knocking it down from the mantle a few times, but it doesn't break all of those times. It just broke one time. So what we did is I shot the scene in front of him. You know, he's kind of up there on the mantle. And so I had the camera in front of him, and we set up a bunch of pillows underneath the mantle. So he knocks the vase down, and it falls, and it doesn't break. And then I shot one from the side, and he knocks it down, and it falls, and it doesn't break. And then finally, we spent like 10 minutes setting up the shot so the vase would land perfectly. And so we see it kind of there. And that was really terrifying because we knock it down, and if it doesn't look good, then it doesn't look good. We did have a second one for a just in case, but it was also there for reshoots. Luckily, we didn't have to break it. But that's how we shot that scene. And it was really fun, and I have some pictures of what it looks like, but I don't have them here. So here's just, you can see the yellow and blue separation again.
Do you remember great-grandmother Alice?
All right, does this shot look familiar? Well, I took this shot along with many shots in my film from directors that I really look up to and aspire to be like. And so this is a take on Quentin Tarantino's trunk shot. So I don't know if you guys have seen any of his movies, but there are a lot of shots that are from low angles, generally from inside a trunk. And so this shot kind of looks like this from Reservoir Dogs, Inglourious Bastards, and Pulp Fiction. And so that was really fun to be able to copy and homage my favorite directors.
This is bad. Yes.
Okay, so now moving on to the second anatomy of a scene. This is from the scene where they go to a yard sale and they try to find a vase that looks like their urn to replace it.
Worth a try, yes. You don't really need so much. I think it would be great. You want to let him go past the interesting? You want to go with him? Did you find anything? You guys get any help finding anything? An urn? I'm sorry, we don't have any of those here, but we do have some freshly squeezed summertime lemonade. It's fine, we're fine. So, you're just gonna have to tell Mom and Dad. Ready to hit it?
Okay, so now we'll go behind the scenes. So we start with what I call a what shot. And so the scene begins with something, with some action that's not involving the main characters. And so that's kind of to get the viewer to be like, why is this here? What's going on? And then suddenly with a wide establishing shot, you reveal the main characters walking across the frame. And so that's just to add a little texture to the film. And so then we get to the meat of this little scene.
It's worth a try, yes.
And then the music comes up. And then we cut to another wide establishing shot. But because the camera's moving, it's called a tracking shot. And then we cut to a pan through the yard sale, but the main characters are in the scene just to kind of establish the scene. And then we cut to a perspective switch to show the other side of the yard sale. So after that, we go to another what shot just to establish the surroundings and to also establish just a second story in this scene just to keep the viewer interested.
I think it would be great.
And then there's another what shot, but this is with the main character. And then this is what I call a silent cut. So it cuts in the middle of the conversation. Those shots actually took place like an hour apart. So it cuts and then pans with these two characters over to the main part of the scene.
Did you find anything?
And then we pan down into an almost perspective shot from Anne's point of view, just to kind of show how big these guys are. They're not really that big, but and also this is my brother who was playing the yard sale guy. So here, the audio from my brother starts before the image cuts to the other shot, And that's just to make it feel a little bit more normal, because you don't turn to someone before they start talking.
I'm sorry, we don't have any of those here, but we do have some freshly squeezed summertime lemonade. Get 5 for 5.
And then with the cut to the last shot of the scene, there's a sync with the change in the music and a really long fade out with the music pulling back up. And that is my presentation. So my film is almost done. It's coming out next week. I'm having a little premiere with my friends, and I'll make sure that Mr. Kanosi and Mr. Finnegan and Miss Samaha send you guys the link to it. So are there any questions?
First of all, amazing. That's
Thank you.
incredible. Quick question. On that last scene, so you have the people walk across the street and the guys take a photo off?
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah.
Just-
The one thing that I didn't plan is the car kind of just goes by, and that was awesome. That's my sister's favorite shot.
Your sister did a great job.
Yeah, I was so proud of her. It's awesome. Man.
Quick question. I got a couple, but I'll just, because this stuff's fascinating.
Yeah.
But as far as like your sister had the yellow, you talked about the blue shot, but your sister had the yellow sweatshirt and I'm sorry, his name?
Dan?
Dan had the blue. Was
Yeah.
that intentional?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was just to kind of reflect their personalities through their clothing. I tried to plan as much of it's called mise en scène, what's seen in the frame as possible. And so like the yard sale, we set that up at my neighbor's house. And there's a lot of shots of the outside of the yard sale and a lot of shots of the house that they live in, which is my house. And they're actually right across the street from each other, but you would never know, which is really cool.
Now, do you have say so on their clothing as well?
At the yard sale, not really. I just,
Okay, all right.
yeah. That would be a little,
Yeah.
Alex, what did you know about filming and editing and camera shots and lighting before you started this project?
well, I hadn't done a crazy amount of video, but I had done some stuff. My brother and I would make just kind of stupid videos. Not really stupid, but just goofy videos together. And they were mostly ad-libbed, like we would think of the plot on the spot. And I was using my phone usually to film. And so for this, I decided I was going to take it to the next level and write a script. And I got a really beautiful camera and a tripod. And I tried to just make it look as professional as possible. Yeah.
You had said before that you did 6 drafts of the play, and
Yeah.
I've noticed that throughout the whole thing, there was a lot of things unsaid, like when she breaks the urn, and when he breaks the urn, and then you don't say, like there's a lot of, it's more gestural
Yeah.
than that, and then when she wants lemonade, there's no like kind of dialogue, but then she gets the lemonade.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that stuff that you wrote out after, or was that always there?
Well, I tried for the most part to show and not tell as
Yeah,
much as possible. And so in the earlier drafts, there was definitely more telling. And really with the help of my friends, I kind of weeded that out. But the first draft, it looks totally different. It's like 20 pages, and then this one's 13 pages. And so I got all of the extraneous and unneeded details out of there.
How did you keep track of all the other little shots that you needed to maybe link to scenes?
Yeah, well, what I did was every day after shooting, I was like so excited to go home and start editing and putting the scenes together. And so I created kind of shot lists for the scenes that I was going to film that day. And I kept those on note cards, and I just kind of posted them up on my wall in my room. And so each day I had the shot list, and I would check off if I got those shots. And then I have like 4 versions of a shooting script, all with tons of details scribbled into it at home. And so on there, like when I would finish shooting that, I'd scribble out those lines. But as for like, there's sometimes you see them walking from one place and stuff. That was really on reshoot day, we got a lot of those because I put the whole thing together and I was like, okay, we kind of need a shot here for this. We kind of need a shot here for this. And that was definitely something that in the future I'll plan on getting more of those shots during the filming day, just in case.
Did you take TV production or?
No, I didn't.
Catering here?
Not really. I like this, filming this kind of came up this year, and I had always really loved the idea of filming something, but I had never done it. And suddenly this year with Capstone, I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to do this. And so now I love this stuff, and I totally wish I was involved with it earlier.
You say more
Yeah.
You said Quentin Tarantino, like,
So throughout the film, there's a lot of shots that homage other directors, and especially Tarantino and Wes Anderson. I read about them in my paper, and so I felt it was fitting to show them in my film. Also, they're just my favorite directors. But all of these shots are kind of taken from it. So here, I'll get back to that so you can kind of see it. Oh, whoops. Okay, that doesn't seem good.
That's her, yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Sorry about that. So here you see how the camera is at a low angle, and while they're not looking directly at it, I told them look like a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. It's almost a perspective shot from the urn. And then when you look at this scene, so I don't know if you guys have seen Reservoir Dogs, but this scene comes up when, I'm pretty sure it's this guy. He goes into they just robbed a jewelry store, and so he goes in, and they're being chased by the police, and so he goes into the warehouse where that was the robbers' rendezvous point, and he's like, guys, come outside, let me show you something. And so he opens the trunk, and the shot starts all black, and he opens the trunk, and then suddenly you see these guys looking at something, and you have no idea what it is. And then it switches perspective to show a cop tied up in the back. And so I was thinking, and that's generally how Tarantino uses these shots. Like in this, I don't know if you guys have seen Inglourious Bastards, but if you haven't, these guys, they're Jews, and they're like hunting Nazis is basically the premise of the film. And so anytime they find one, they put a swastika in the forehead, which is like brutal, but they don't show it. So they usually show from this shot the thing happening, and then it cuts to the other guy, and it shows what's on his face. And so I figured I didn't really want to show too much of the ashes on the floor because it kind of added a tense feel to the scene. And I also love this shot. And so I figured if I came from that point of view, I would be able to keep the urn out of the shot while still establishing that there's something really bad on the floor. Sorry for that really long explanation. Any other questions?
So what about senior year project stretched you, changed you,
Um,
impacted you?
Yeah, well, one thing that I did is I came into this project with a really ambitious goal, and I was like, there's a very good chance that I won't meet my goal. And it was writing, producing all of this, and I did it. Like, I'm really proud of myself for being able to do it. And so coming out of it, I know that I'm able to do these really big projects if I set aside the time and really focus and get myself invested in it. And I'm also really happy that from this project I learned a lot about planning. And generally I'm a very good planner, but with this it was like taking it to a whole nother level. I had to plan out getting all these extras to come to my house. I had to tell them, yeah, it's going to be 1.5 minutes in the film, but you're going to be here for 5 hours, and just like getting food and making sure everyone's comfortable while still getting all these shots looking good, and then planning out what shots I need to shoot that day, planning out what I need to edit that day. And then it also kind of brought out like the, I had to be really critical of myself, and generally I'm not that great at that. And so I decided rather than me being critical of myself, I'd get my good friends to do that for me. So, and I knew because they're my good friends, I wouldn't be offended by them saying, this looks like, this is awful. And so I learned with that to take constructive criticism and to ask for it when I needed it.
What are you doing next year?
I don't know what I'm majoring in, but I'm going to Wesleyan. And they have a really good film program there, so yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Any other questions?
one last question, the one shot.
Yeah.
Like, what, the one shot, that just, you got it.
Okay. So I was,
You go out.
so I had to kind of think of a name for that because Here, I'll play it for you. Sorry, this computer mouse is kind of finicky. But I'll play it for you, and then I'll try to explain it again, because it is a little confusing.
I hope John Furlow cooperated.
Oh, he was great.
I'm joking. I know him well, he's lovely.
They weren't actually supposed to have lines, but here, I'll play that again. But what they said was so funny, and so I had to put it in. So the whole point of that shot, and I don't know if it worked, was to get you guys, the viewers, interested in what that sign says, because it's kind of washed out and it's hard to see. And so you see this person walk by and turn and look at the sign, and you're like, what is that? And so that's kind of what the what shot establishes. And then you see the main characters come up to the sign, and you get a close-up of it, and it says yard sale, and that's really all that you need to read of it. And so it's to establish the scene, I guess. And then in the future what shots, I just kind of put those in the same category, and they're, I guess, overall what is more of an umbrella term. That's kind of like, why is this important? And it's not. And I feel like films tend to have every scene is really important, or people think every scene is really important, especially in TV shows. Like if you watch House of Cards, there's this one scene that's of no importance at all, where it's in the first season, like the bodyguard guy, he comes and he just puts like a vase with flowers on the kitchen table, and it's, when you're watching that, you're like, I know this means something, but it doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't mean anything. So I'd consider that a what shot, if that makes sense. I guess I wanted to add one more thing. I kind of want to brag a bit, but for this 12-minute film, I shot almost 3 hours of footage, and I had to get it all down to 12 minutes, and that was really cool, and that was also crazy. Like this scene took a few takes. Every scene takes a few takes, and that's just something that that's why you have to plan, like, this is going to take a minute and a half to film, or this is going to take up a minute and a half in the film, but we're going to take 4 hours to film it.
So you have to use YouTube as a vehicle to show your clips to us?
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to upload them to the PowerPoint, but it was taking a while, and I wanted to get it done rather than worry about will it look good. And, yeah.
I just find that interesting that we're, forced is probably a strong word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you need some kind of vehicle to.
Yeah, it is
Which
kind of
is
funny.
great for YouTube because it's
Yeah.
advertising, but it's just interesting.
And there's scripts on the table, and you guys are welcome to take them if you want, or you can leave them here. I won't be offended if you leave them or anything.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.